This is the very rare 2013 Volkswagen Golf R, and in this video I'm going to cover the exterior, the interior, take it for a drive and see what it's like out on the road, as well as talk about the kind of fuel economy you can expect and also the pricing and how it compares to its competition these days. And huge thanks to Harrison Auto Sales and Service for providing me here with this very rare Golf R to review for you guys today. So about the Mark 6 Golf R, well, this was, the first of the Golf Rs. Previously, they were the R32s. Previously, they had the VR6 engine. This was the first to have the Turbo 4 with the all-wheel drive in a Golf body. And the Mark 6s are pretty rare for the Golf R. I think they made 5,000 per year, if my info is correct. And so this is the second and only other model year other than the 2012s for the Mark 6s here. And they also were only manual transmission. The R32 for the Mark 5 was actually dual clutch automatic only. So this was also a radical change. The Save the Manuals crowd is very excited because they were bringing back the manual here with this. And it's very cool that, that's the only way these came though. There was no option for an automatic until you got to the Mark 7s. And so as far as the styling, the other cool thing is that this was the last version, I believe, to be offered, at least here in the States, as a two-door. And so this is a two-door one, which I don't even know is probably even more rare than the four-door probably. But it was actually, I think, a $600 upcharge to go for the four-door. But this is the two-door. And the things otherwise to look at here, you have some really nice sharp headlights. They're projector bi-xenon headlamps. They actually had adaptive lenses that would swivel with the steering wheel, so turning into corners for better visibility, which is cool. You also, of course, have the unique front bumper here for the Rs, and coming down to the sides, you also had unique 18-inch wheels on these, but also the side profile, especially here on the two doors, you can see just the huge amounts of glass, especially the rear window there is really large, and these days it almost looks comical. And going out to the back, the main giveaway here that you're looking at a Golf R are the dual exhaust tips in the middle there. That's always been the R way, and this has that. This one strangely has the rear hatch D badge. You would have an R badge there as well, and you also will see the slightly more aggressive rear spoiler, but very understated, honestly. And even compared to a GTI, I mean, there's not a whole lot here to separate it, aside from, again, the unique bumpers, which were, again, still so subdued, and especially this one in gray flies under the radar even more too. And so overall though, just a really cool thing, especially here as a two-door. It's so cool to see a two-door Golf R, in my opinion. The interior of the Mark 6 Golf R is a little dated, but this one's actually really nice and clean for the most part. And you can see the unique touches here for the Golf R. Primarily that you get a unique steering wheel, you get the aluminum trim here on the doors and on the dash, and then you get these unique seats. And so sitting down in these seats, these are really great seats. Great bolstering, hugs you in nice and tight without being overboard, at least for my body type. Definitely sit in one of these if you can to figure it out for yourself. But for me, it's actually a really nice seat, and it's nice soft leather too, but the bolstering is just so well done. There are also heated seats here as standard in the Golf Rs, and also manual adjustments still even for the Golf R. There was no way to even get power adjustments. That kept the weight nice and low on these, but the seats aren't perforated. That's the only thing I wish they had, just they would breathe a little bit better on hot days, but still great seats. Moving on to the steering wheel here, we have a really cool flat bottom, and this was back when that was kind of a newish thing really, and had a great 9.3 cutout, nice big 10-2 notches, and nicely leather wrapped. Just a few buttons here on it, and not too overboard or anything, and nicely done. Moving on to the gauge cluster here, that is going to be a little bit unique in the fact that it has blue needles for the Golf R, and also the speedometer goes up to 200 miles per hour, which I don't know why they did that, because it got nowhere close to that on top speed, but just a fun little touch, I suppose. And in the middle there, you have your basic kind of old-fashioned Volkswagen driver information stuff there. And this one also has had a boost gauge added to the air vent. That was not factory, if you couldn't guess. So I think this car might have had some mods. It has an intake. We'll see. I don't know the story on this car. It's just on this Harrison Auto Sales at this lot, and I don't know the background. But this one has a boost gauge. You can add that clearly, as you can see there, but did not come with one from the factory actually. Now moving over to the middle of the dashboard here, you have this small little screen that is actually a touchscreen, believe it or not. You do have also the physical buttons around it, but it's a tiny screen. I don't know, if I had to guess, it's maybe like a 4-inch screen there. But the things that make it okay are, one, you have an auxiliary jack. You also do have satellite radio in this, and those are two nice things to keep it modern. You do also have the proprietary Volkswagen Group plug that would connect to your iPod back in the day. If you wanted to do that here in these, I'm not sure if there's a way to work through that anymore or not. There's no USB-C jacks in this vehicle, unfortunately, but nice to at least have the auxiliary jack to, pump music in yourself that way. Also, this one does have the option package for the upgraded 300 watt Dyna Audio stereo. That was part of an option group that gave you the stereo. It gave you the sunroof, the keyless entry, and navigation. And so this one has that. I think it was like a $1,500 option pack back in the day. So the only other thing I will say about this little infotainment screen is that I keep going to the middle knob thinking it's going to be the volume one. And I got to remind myself to go over to the left here to change volume instead. But aside from that, it has a CD drive too, which is cool. And, just well done. You also have, of course, your nice simple dials there for your climate controls. And then coming down, you have a tiny little cubby here with a 12-volt power outlet next to it. And this row of blank buttons, aside from one that turns off traction control. Although the one common complaint with this vehicle back in the day was that you couldn't fully turn off all the electronics. So, it I think reduces it, but I don't know if it completely turns everything off there. You also have a nice, prominent shifter placement there. And then you have your two cup holders, which are certainly on the small side, as you'll be familiar with if you're used to Volkswagen Group products of this time period. You also have a center armrest, which is nice and softly padded. You open that up, and you'll see basically no space. Again, you have that proprietary jack there, and then you have a slot for your iPod or phone if it's small enough, and then another little slot for the key or something. Very minimal amount of space. Thankfully, you do have nice large pockets in the doors with a bottle holder, so that's certainly appreciated to make up for space. But otherwise, you just have to chuck stuff into the back seat. And speaking of the back seat in the Golf R, even for the two-door version, it's surprisingly, pretty good. I mean, it's a very blocky hatchback in a very practical shape, so you shouldn't be too surprised. But I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I have about an inch or so of legroom to spare, so I do actually have usable space for adults back there. You also have a good amount of headroom. This one is having a saggy headliner, so, that's why I'm pushing it up a little bit there. It's the one thing on this car that isn't perfect, but, a good amount of headroom, though, is the bottom line. And, huge window glass. So, I mean, a really nice place to be, honestly, sitting in the back there. And Volkswagen even went to the trouble of giving you your own air vents back there. And you also have little pockets as well, and even a fold-down center armrest there, too. And so, pretty nice setup. And again, if you wanted a more usable back seat, there was the four-door version. Probably didn't give you much more legroom, but obviously just the easier access there with the rear doors, and great that was available. But so cool to have these two doors here. But anyway, moving on to the trunk space here in the Golf R. It's about, par for the course how GTIs have been for decades now. It's a good amount of space. You can flip the seats down, you can stack stuff, lots of ways to make this more practical. But, it's a small hatchback. That's the way it goes. Beneath the floor, you will actually see a spare tire, though, still, which was a nice inclusion. These days, you don't get that in a Golf R, so it's nice that you have that, too. Also, a little power outlet there in the cargo area as well. But let's turn it on and go for a drive. So the Golf R, again, because this one has the option pack, did have keyless access. I think they all had push button start, though, so I think it was just a matter of whether or not you had the proximity thing on the doors there. But it was still using the old Volkswagen key back in the day with the switchblade that came out. So you just had that and just the buttons there on the back of it. But I always love these Volkswagen keys. And so, but yeah, you don't need the key unless you need to manually get into the doors, because everything's, push button start here. You just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button here, and it starts right up, and you have the boost gauge do its little aftermarket chime, and you're ready to go. All right, so setting off here in the Mark 6 Golf R. This one, you get the intake noises. So the first thing that I notice about this vehicle, I mean, the visibility is fantastic. You have such large glass in this thing. And you can also sit nice and low in this, though, which is cool. So you just feel like you're immersed in this very panoramic kind of view here. And you sit nice and low, though. It definitely is a very sporty kind of driving position. Other things here. So obviously wear items like that. I mean, this thing has 102,000 miles on it. But, brakes actually feel pretty nice and responsive. And Otherwise, shifter is a little loose feeling. I don't know if that's the way these came, because I've actually, believe it or not, never driven a Mark 6 GTI or Golf R until today. But shifter could use a little bit more precision, in my opinion. Nothing a short shifter kit or some kind of updated kind of thing couldn't fix. Other things here, though, throttle response is nice and responsive, right? Towards the top of the pedal there, you get some good response out of it here. And ride is also pretty nice and smooth, even though this generation of the Golf R did not have adaptive dampers, just regular passive dampers. It was sportier suspension setup, of course, for the Golf R, and unique for this vehicle compared to GTI or regular Golfs. And it all is just totally fine here, just to take in the beautiful fall colors here and just enjoy the drive. It's also pretty refined. This one does have a little bit more road noise. I think that is primarily because this one is on snow tires, so not a bad idea, because we're on a very cold day in October here. So we're in the 40s, so not a bad idea to have those on, but you're not going to be able to get the absolute max amount of grip out of this thing as a result. And there's no drive modes here in the Golf R, so just put in first gear and let's turn down onto this back road and see how it accelerates. Here we go. Little wastegate flutter, blow off sound there. And this thing, it scoots. It's very subtle with the speed. I'm rolling through the gears and having a good time, and I'm feeling like I'm going quick, but I don't realize how fast I'm going. I look down at the speedometer, I'm like, oh, this thing moves very nicely, actually. So for the Golf R, for the Mark 6s here, we are running a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It is the EA113, which is the Audi TTS motor that's detuned. It has stronger connecting rods and a stronger block, and it was an EA888. Now, the GTI for the Mark 6 did have one of the earliest iterations of the EA888, but they did not go to that here to the Golf R until the later generations. But man, this thing, it gets up and goes really nicely. So 0 to 60, I think Car and Driver got a 5.9 second time, which is actually slightly slower than the prior eMark 5 R32. That's because those had launch control with their dual clutch automatic. And of course, it puts all the power down to the road through an Haldex all-wheel drive system. And Volkswagen claimed back in the day that it could do up to 100% of the torque to the rear. And so, don't expect this to have any kind of, tail-happy antics. But if it deemed it was appropriate, it could put a lot of the power rearward there. And rev matching downshifts, fairly easy to do. Pretty light flywheel. And we had 256 horsepower. 243 pound-feet of torque. And now on a back road here, let's see how the Golf R handles. So these were impressively light. They were about 3,354 pounds, I think is what Car and Driver weighed it at. And that was actually, according to their claim, 200 pounds lighter than the old R32. I guess because that had, the extra 2 cylinders and the dual clutch auto, maybe. I don't know. But so, and especially, I think the 2-doors, I think their test one was a 4-doors. This might even be a tiny bit lighter. I don't know. But regardless, I mean, impressively light for a vehicle with a turbocharged engine and all-wheel drive. It just feels so nice and low and light. The other nice thing, though, about these was that you had quicker steering than the GTI. So that was one of the things they tried to do to differentiate this from GTI a little bit more, in addition to just the extra power, which was a lot extra, by the way. Back then, you were only getting about 200 horsepower out of a GTI. I will say, going over some of the potholes and stuff there, it's a little bit of a bumpy ride. Definitely a lot of communication there. But I mean, this thing, it feels very composed, as long as you're okay with a slightly stiffer ride. But very composed, very eager and willing. And we're going to go on some tighter corners and try and push it a little more. But so far, it leaves a very good first impression. And like I mentioned earlier, this is only available with the 6-speed manual for the Mark 6 Golf Rs here. And if you're someone who's newer to driving a manual, just know that this clutch is a little tricky. It's a little heavy. It's going to take a little bit of a learning period, so don't feel too bad if you're not a pro right off the bat. One nice thing that they did do, though, was give you a hill holder clutch. So it will hold itself on hills, so you don't have to worry about rolling back at least. And got some tighter corners coming up here. and leaning on these brakes. We got bigger brakes here for the Golf R as well, but chucking it into a corner here and trying to power out. Oh yeah, it kind of held back on me for a tiny bit there, but it's it handles itself really well. It's so flat, it's impressive. But anyway, getting back to those brakes, which are a little squeaky. I don't know if just the pads they chose for this or what, but it does 13.6-inch rotors in the front, 12.2 in the rear, I believe, which is 1.5 inches bigger in the rear, and I think 1.2 inch bigger in the front for those rotors. And certainly nice, especially, you know, with the extra weight you got of these over, you know, a GTI. Certainly nice to have the extra braking capability. Another acceleration. This thing scoots, and I love that intake. Sounds really nice. Always a fun thing. Although I will have to say, you know, stock exhaust, there's like nothing going on back there. It's like, come on, this is a Golf R. Like, you would think that they would have wanted to, you know, add a little bit of sound in the back there, and instead we got nothing. So obviously that's what the aftermarket's for, very easy to fix, but just, you know, back then, I mean, these were expensive. I mean, I don't know what the adjusted for inflation amount is, but, you know, when they were new, they were like $35,000. These days that sounds like a bargain, but you know, back then that was pretty expensive, and so you know, it's unfortunate you had to go to the aftermarket to get, you know, some sound and all that. But it was a different time too, and you didn't have active exhaust as a normal thing. You didn't have a lot of these, you know, performance and enthusiast fun things that we often almost take for granted these days. But another tight corner here. Okay, it definitely it tried to rotate on me there a little bit, but I was feeling a little bit of understeer as well. I'd need to play around with this thing at the limit more on track or something to really kind of feel out the balance better. But yeah, it's fun for sure. I'm definitely having fun in this thing. You know, I think really the problem though with these back in the day is that everyone said it's a lot of extra money for a GTI with all-wheel drive and 50 more horsepower. And, you know, that's kind of the bottom line. I mean, if you live in a place where you need all-wheel drive, then this is, you know, a fantastic option. It's so nice that they offer this for those who don't want to go to an S3 or something like that. You know, you had this, and it was great that they offered this. And also, you know, this was really the only non-luxury sedate vehicle like this, really, you know, because your only other options really back then still would have been, again, either going after the luxury stuff or going to like a Subaru WRX STI or even a regular WRX, you know, with kind of a similar horsepower, or you could go, you know, for one of the other front-wheel drive hot hatches. But all-wheel drive, the only other thing was an Evo. It was the final years of the Evo, but that was pretty much it. Everything else is like, well, you need front-wheel drive because Focus RS wasn't a thing for a few more years, you know, and so it was kind of this weird little pocket in time where there wasn't a whole lot out there. And so, you know, this one is just under $15,000 at Harrison Auto Sales. And, you know, if you're interested in it, definitely check out the link in the description. Give them a call. They'd be more than happy to help you out. And like I said, has the sagging headliner and, you know, isn't completely 10 out of 10, but these things are rare, and especially defined in a two-door in, you know, otherwise really nice shape. Runs great, drives great, feels nice and strong. I have noticed the boost gauge doesn't actually show me boost, so something got disconnected there, but it's, you know, lit up and functioning otherwise. It, you know, does the sweep when you turn it on, just not actually showing me boost. But otherwise, you know, it's a really cool example and a very clean example as well of one of these. And the final thing to mention for anyone who cares is the fuel economy. So these we get 19 mpg in the city and 27 on the highway, and you know, it's a 4-cylinder turbo and all-wheel drive, so that holds you back a little bit. But I mean, that fuel economy is better than, you know, a WRX or an STI would certainly get. Even modern WRXs would struggle to probably get that kind of fuel economy. So not too bad. And you know, especially whenever you have bad weather conditions, like we're starting to get some rain here now, that's where this thing will really shine with an all-wheel drive system and putting down power much better than, you know, the GTIs or the other, you know, competing front-wheel drive things of the day. And I just, it's the old school kind of hot hatch feel with this thing, especially having the added wastegate sounds and stuff. And it's a lot of car. I mean, you know, again, these are all over the place pricing-wise because of their rarity and, you know, the wildly different conditions that every one of these are in. But, you know, if you can get a good deal on one of these, I think it's a lot of car, even like this one, you know, for $15,000 or so. you know, again, these motors, I think it's a known quantity. They seem to be pretty stout, as long as you don't, you know, poorly tune them or whatever. You know, so it's a solid car most likely. This one doesn't have any kind of check engine lights or anything like that on. No weird electrical gremlins or anything to speak of, which is great. Now, if you could, certainly getting an extended warranty on something like this would probably be a great idea if you're going to keep it stock at least. But you know, I think it's a lot of car. And you look at, you know, a comparable WRX that's in similarly nice shape will probably cost you similar money, and this is again rarer. So from a collectability standpoint, the fact that, you know, they didn't bring a ton of these over, I think they sold out pretty quickly, you know, everyone that they did bring over, you know, it's going to make this certainly, I think, someday appreciate better than your average WRX, and even an Evo possibly, because I think they made more Evos than they did of these for sure. So I think it's a special car that might be kind of at the bottom of its depreciation curve or close to it, and may sweep back up again someday. Again, who knows? I don't have a crystal ball, but I can't imagine a car that's this rare, that's, you know, manual, two-door, all-wheel drive turbo. Like, that's a really rare and desirable combo, I think, for a lot of people. And the fact that these seem to be somewhat slept on, you know, just kind of amazes me. And so definitely worth checking out this one, or, you know, any others that are closer to where you are. Definitely think it's worth a try. Again, you can go to the aftermarket to build in more drama and more excitement. Obviously, you know, the WRX and the Evo are going to be more exciting, but this is still a lot of fun. I mean, good amount of power. I mean, even this intake alone added some extra drama that you otherwise wouldn't have had, and adding an exhaust and, you know, doing a few other little things that make this, you know, a lot of fun. So yeah, a really cool little car. Happy to bring some extra awareness here to the Mark 6 Golf Rs. And so yeah, huge thanks once again to Harrison Auto Sales for providing me here with this rare unicorn of a car to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Let me know what you think about these in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.